Loading. Welcome to Access the Animus.
Hello everyone and welcome to a new video here at Access the Animus. Today we're completing our analysis of the Tombs of the Fallen activity for Assassin's Creed Valhalla by fully delving into its first civilization content. In the video we're going to have a deeper look at the Isu Prisons featured in the activity with some theories about who they might have contained and a focus on one of their confirmed prisoners who directly ties into the story of the Mastery Challenge game mode. We're also going to have a detailed analysis of everything we know of the Isu language words that are featured in the activity and how, along with some other words, they might be instrumental in opening the final door of the main Isu location. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking it, subscribing to our channel and turning the notifications on so you won't miss any of our future updates. And with that out of the way, let's dive into the Isu story content from the Tombs of the Fallen activity. So we pick up where we left off in part 1 of this analysis, where we had a look at how the Britons, the Romans and Eivor interacted with a number of Isu locations left in England, presumably by the Asgardian Isu, and how those were used as locations for tombs, for worship, for deadly puzzles, and, well, for hallucinogen storage, of course. But what was their actual purpose? Yeah, we already saw it in our first video, so, just act surprised and all when we discuss it. So what did the Isu, the Asgardian Isu, mean to do with these locations? Why do they actually tie into the Mastery Challenge story, and what do the Isu words shown in the DLC actually mean? Let's just jump in and answer all of these questions. The Isu centerpiece here is made up of the structures built underground that people aren't supposedly able to notice and should believe to be just rocks, but can seemingly be opened by everyone, considering how not just Eivor, and we're going to see Hildiran, but also the Britons and Manus were able to open them. These Isu buildings can thus be accessed by touching an Odin illusionary rune placed over the fake rock face, making it seem like these buildings were actually created by the Asgardian Isu and more likely than not, Odin himself. This also kind of implies that the Asgardian Isu had some sway over the territory now known as Britain and Ireland, as it could also be imagined considering the encounter between Odin and Balor shown in the Wrath of the Druids DLC, even if there are some database references to a different group of Celtic Isu living in England at the time. These Isu structures seem to all be tied to the main one, located in front of Ravensthorpe and close to the sanctuary of Freyia, and the reason for that is that they all look similar, that the various indicators on the England Isu map disappear when you complete the tombs, and especially because it seems like all the tombs except the main one are holding these artifacts that cause Eivor to pronounce words in the Isu language, which one way or another are going to hopefully be useful in order to open the final door. In fact, when finding the first one, Eivor says that there must be some place where the words are useful, not the artifacts, the words, so I'd expect that at some point when the second part of this activity gets released and we complete the final 2 tombs, we're going to get 2 more words and Eivor will be able to finally pronounce a full Isu language sentence in front of the door, in order to open it. Kinda like an Isu version of Open Sesame, if you will. The purpose of these structures is supposedly that of confinement, that is, all of these were supposedly prisons, and if these were created by the Asgardian Isu and thus by Odin, these are indeed prisons scattered across modern-day England and potentially Ireland, where Odin and the Asgardian Isu kept other Isu, or maybe some experiments like those of the Olympus projects shown in Odyssey, considering that Manus mentions both men and beasts. So of course the first thing that came to mind was, what if one of these structures is the one where Odin had the Isu Fenrir imprisoned? Within the Asgard arc we see that he is relegated to the island of Lyngvi, where he is watched by the Isu Tyr, so what if that island was the representation of modern day England within the mythological veil? If that were the case, we might get the chance to see where Fenrir ended up to be, and that would justify why Basim is watching this part of Eivor's story. But then again, we already have other indicators that probably that's not the direction that this activity is going to take. For example, it's a side activity that's not even a quest, so it would be a tad anticlimactic to have this important part of the story be completed through that, but also the key Isu prisoner of these locations that we know of is someone else. In fact, by jumping in a pit on the way out of Venusius' tomb instead of following the zipline, Eivor and the players can find a narrow opening that does lead into a small chamber all adorned with Isu architecture and no human additions, with a skeleton over what seems to be a large pedestal, or a bed maybe, made of the classic obsidian-like Isu stone. This does indeed look like an Isu prison, and it's even confirmed as one in the secret documents that can be found inside of it, which are both signed by, plot twist, Hildiran, the old lady from the Mastery Challenge story, and this officially ties that story to the one of the Tombs of the Fallen activity. In her first document, Hildiran writes that in her explorations she did find this quote-unquote ancient cell, so again another confirmation that these were actual Isu prisons. And by meditating here, Hildiran heard voices of the past and kind of felt the memories of her ancestor Hildr. Now, if you don't recall who Hildr was, we got our Mastery Challenge story analysis video to cover that, but based on the various documents and some of our theories, she was Hildiran's ancestor from the Isu era, the Isu equivalent of one of the Valkyries from the Norse mythology, who served under Odin until, for some unknown reasons, she stopped doing that, and when Odin found out about that, he stripped her of her armor, she was made mortal, and was forced to wander amidst the humans. In our idea, she was made mortal through the use of the 7 method, so the Isu Hildr was forced to give her DNA to be merged with that of the humans centuries and millennia later, as it happened for Odin, Tyr, Freyia and the others, while it looks like after this procedure, or maybe before it, Hildr herself was confined in this specific Isu prison by Odin. In fact, in Hildiran's note we can read that she was told by her mother that their Isu ancestor had been imprisoned during the Isu era. So what we see here is that there seem to have been generations of Hildr's descendants that had her DNA in their blood and who were able to see glimpses of her memories, which would match the use of the 7 method perfectly, and who also got to know about Hildr's story and whatever kind of torture or punishment Odin and maybe Freyia put her through, so much so that they passed their story through generations until these legends got to Hildiran, who actually found her ancestor's prison, which also means that she too was able to go through the rock illusions, maybe go through Manus' traps as well, and so on until she actually found what she was looking for. In the final lines of the document, Hildiran seems to be hinting at some kind of betrayal by the gods that caused the Valkyrie, surely Hildr, to crash to Earth, and for which she is going to take vengeance. From this we can interpret that Odin and maybe Freyia somehow betrayed Hildr, and that's why she stopped serving under them, which is actually what caused her to be quote-unquote made mortal, and it's because of this unspecified betrayal that centuries and millennia later, her descendant Hildiran wants to take vengeance, very likely on Odin's and maybe Freyja's descendants, which are Eivor and, well, Valka, considering that Svala is now hanging in the Yggdrasil tree. And yeah, this does look like a rehash of the Basim plot, with a descendant or reincarnated character from the Isu era wanting to take revenge on the descendant or reincarnated version of their oppressor. Or maybe not, maybe it will be something different eventually. Hildr's prison, however, holds a second note by Hildiran where she says that she has visited this location from time to time to think about the stories that her mother told her about their ancestor and what she went through, and we can add to experience the glimpses of the memories of her past. But the final sentence is possibly the real teaser for the upcoming content tied to the Mastery Challenge and the Tombs of the Fallen activities. In fact, she does confirm here that when Freyja's medallion will sense the presence of the One Eye, as in the Odin's Eye artifact that indeed Hildiran obtained from Eivor, only then the legacy of her ancestor Hildr would be revealed. So this shows that these documents date prior to the Mastery Challenge story, as at the end of that we do see Freyja's medallion and the Odin's Eye artifact interacting with each other, so it does look like part 2 of the Mastery Challenge will finally help us delve more into the past of Hildr and eventually allow us to obtain the armor that Odin stripped her of, while part 2 of the Tombs of the Fallen activity will hopefully and finally allow us to cross the door and possibly find out more about these Isu prisons and what Odin was planning to do with them. But how shall we be able to open that door? Well, we kind of saw that the Isu language words uttered by Eivor, rather than the artifacts that originated them, might really be useful to do that, even though, considering that we got an Isu word for each tomb, with the second part of Tombs of the Fallen we might get at least 2 more with the 2 tombs left in England, or even 5 more if Ubisoft is actually going to add more tombs to the Odin runes locations within the Ireland map, even if that is not available to everyone. Thus, hypothesizing that all these words are going to eventually make a new sentence in the Isu language and that Eivor hopefully is going to pronounce it after obtaining all the artifacts in order to open the door, we should expect a sentence that is either 5 or 8 words long. As of now though, we only know 3 of them, and interestingly enough, they are always delivered to the player in the same order despite the order in which they explore the tombs, which means that they should necessarily be read in that order. So they are Hasm, Roptoras and Oenosud. Alright, let's have a look at what we know about them based on the knowledge at our disposal. So starting with Hasm, which is written in the Isu language like this, we have already found words with the same root, that is Has, while cracking the Saint Denis mystery of the Siege of Paris DLC. In there we had it in the forms of Hasoma and Hasödi, which were respectively the past tense first person singular and the present tense third person singular of the verb to be part of or to belong. In this case though, the suffix of the word hasm, which is just m, does not make the word look like a verb, so we can try and consider it as a name, so the idea would be to interpret this as belongings or property. Moving on, we have Roptoras, which should be transcribed like this, and we haven't ever encountered this word in the Isu language, especially its root. Nonetheless, we can already find some elements here that tell us a bit more about what we have in front of us. The suffix as, here indicated in red, is usually an indicator of a genitive case in the language. The letter r that we can see in green here usually indicates the presence of a plural word, while the suffix to in blue here is commonly used to indicate a past participle, even though it's usually placed at the end of a word. Still, we're not fully sure how to consider this, as we have never seen an example of a conjugated past participle word in the Isu language. Maybe this is the first example of that, but anyway, we still do know that this is something like of the, and then a plural, potentially past participle word. Finally, we have Oenosud, and this is a word that we have seen a number of times already within the Isu language files from Valhalla's main game in the forms of Oenos and Oenosrs. In itself, this is an irregular word that has the meaning of one or it or a single thing, which in its plural version can be translated as everything or everyone. The word spoken by Eivor though is Oenosud, meaning it has the same root but a different suffix, and the suffix ud is actually one we already know, and it represents a dative of interest, which basically translates to for the sake of or in the interest of, or more simply for. So in this case, as Oenos means one or single thing or single person, this should translate to for the sake of one, in the interest of one person, or for a single thing, or any variation of those. So wrapping up, this chunk of sentence that we have could be interpreted as property or belongings of a plural group of people or entities for the sake or in the interest of one. But keep in mind, if we're actually going to get more words, the meaning of this could change drastically. And that was it for the second and final part of our analysis of the Tombs of the Fallen activity. It took us quite some time as usual for the research and the details, but we finally got there. Do you agree or disagree with our interpretation of the story and lore involved in it? Where do you think it might lead? And where do you think the Isu language words will take us? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in our next video.